This is a 1934 Waco cabin YKC. Alphabet soup. Y means the engine, K means the wing airfoil, and C means cabin. I could not find anything about this airplane, and on a cold call with a customer of mine to this friend of his, it turns out that this gentleman was the son of the original owner of this airplane. And there's been people that's been in this airplane like you would not believe. Bessie Owen, who flew a Waco cabin around the world. George Putnam, Wrong Way Corrigan, and we believe Lindbergh, Charles Lindbergh, because George Fisk Hammond was the original owner, and he worked for Ryan, and he designed all the fairings and cowlings and the spinner for the Spirit, and befriended Lindbergh. I have a copy of a postcard from Lindbergh. It says, "Dear George, getting cold out here. No one wants to stay anymore, so expect us anytime." Now, two old flying buddies got together while he owned this Waco. What do you think? I think they went flying. There was a gentleman named Walden Spillers, had a Staggerwing Beechcraft that he asked me to paint for him. While I looked at the airplane, I looked up, there was a fuselage hanging in the top of the hangar. I said, "What is that, Moon?" And he says, "That is a Waco cabin biplane." I said, "Oh, really?" He says, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I've got the Staggerwing. This is going to be my last airplane." I said, "Well, if you ever want to part with that, let me know." The next morning, he was on my doorstep. He said, "Are you serious about the Waco?" And I said, "Well, yeah, if it's not too pricey." He says, "You paint the Staggerwing, the Waco project is yours." I started the project in 2002 and worked on it basically 16 years for completion. The fuselage was in pretty tough shape. The aft section from the windows back had to be replaced, and a few more tubes. Over 100 feet of new tubing went into the fuselage bare frame. But we built a jig and did all that, but we got it right. I mentioned to you about the son. His name is Seth Hammond, George Fisk Hammond's son. When I called and told him that I had his father's airplane, he just could not believe it. He says, "Oh, that can't be true." And I said, "It really is true." And he said, "Well, how do you know that?" I said, "Well, your father bought airplane serial number 4219. The number of the serial number of the airplane is stamped in the frame. I know it's your father's airplane." Well, I guess that wasn't good enough, because he and his wife flew from Santa Barbara to my front yard and landed in a Bell Jet Ranger. We had a little luncheon for him, and he says, "Can I see that serial number?" I got him a flashlight, and the airplane was uncovered, so it was easy to do. Showed him the serial number, and he just shook his head. He says, "I just cannot believe this happened, our happenstance meeting, you know." He says, "Would it be okay if I got in the airplane?" I said, "I insist on you get in the airplane. And you should see the pictures, I have them." He broke down and cried when he sat in his father's seat. It was just a wonderful thing. So there's lots of stories to go with this airplane like that. Well, I'm not so sure it was a great candidate for restoration because it was in such bad shape. But I love the beauty of the airplane. When you think of the Waco cabins, in my eye, I think this is the most beautiful model. I have flown other Waco cabins, and they all fly quite lovely, and this one is no exception. It does fly hands off. It's got lots of power. Coming up here, we just eased it up to 10,000 feet to get above the clouds. No issue at all. This is the first time I've been out with it, but people have seen it in the hangar, have really loved it. But the reception here has just been overwhelming. I can't describe how nice and great people have been to me here. It's just unbelievable. I'll cherish these memories for the rest of my life.